how they was treating the blacks in America. We didn't know that.
African immigrants do not view racism the same way as Black Americans because we were looking at it from two completely different perspectives.
I be seeing immigrants on this at breaking down in a way I just don't see Black Americans breaking down. And I think it's because they are finally, the veil is being lifted off of the promise of America. And I think that this is very crushing to them.
Easier for us Africans that were raised in Africa to feel like they're complaining because we were raised through struggle. Like I barely even have water and you have water, you're complaining. But then it's not about the basic necessity or about how we are raised. We are raised like, I don't want to say way better. We might not have resources, but there are some way, like our own people will not look down on us.
We didn't know how they was treating the blacks in America. We didn't know that. Yeah. So Haitians would go to America, and when she got to the room, the doctor wouldn't give her pain medications, saying these people are exaggerating, and didn't realize like she was black also, and saying these people. But also Haitians, when they came to America, they didn't realize racism was not a thing because everybody was just human beings. Right. It's when they got here they realized, oh, and also another thing about Haitians, they thought like, oh, they talking about African Americans. Well, I'm Haitian. So,
that's so funny.
So that's another thing she think. Oh, they must be talking that African Americans don't feel pain.
That is
when they're
so
pregnant.
Crazy. You know what's wild? As you're saying these things, the two thoughts that come to my mind. One is how similar the stories of racism are around the world.
Trevor, are they really that similar? Let's ask Malcolm X.
Even in South Africa, those Africans aren't faced with bayonets and aren't faced with police dogs and aren't where these African nations, knowing the brutality that is inflicted upon black people in this country, simply because those black people are trying to get what the Supreme Court said they were supposed to have 10 years ago. I would be not a man. If I was in a position to bring it in front of the United Nations and didn't do so, I wouldn't be.
We were facing the worst type of violence in the world at that time, and the world was not aware. That's why Malcolm X wanted to bring up this human rights issue to the United Nations so we can get support to stop the killings. But Trevor Noah to say it's crazy how similar racism is around the world. Right after that man just said that his mother didn't know that she was going to be on the receiving end of racism because she was Haitian and not African American. It's just...
African immigrants do not view racism the same way as Black Americans because we were looking at it from two completely different perspectives.
If you truly believe that it's different for us, why don't you just copy what we do? We just don't care. And the reason why we don't care is because our parents did not tell us to care about it. They never did. Your parents, your grandparents told you to care about it. And that's the problem with the Black American community. Your grandparents told your parents about racism. And your parents told you about racism. Then you're going to grow up and tell your kids about racism. And the problem continues because you keep on talking about it. Listen, my dad was born in 1961. That's a year after Congo became an independent country. So my dad grew up watching the country going from colonization to becoming what it is today. My dad has never sat me down to tell me about how he was growing up. Never. Never! And that will never be my dad's story. My dad's story is the story of a 17-year-old who came from a Congolese village, made it to the capital, and now owns multiple properties. That is my dad's story. My dad's story will never be the story of a young man who grew up in a country where white folks used to mistreat his father. My dad's story will never be the story of a young man who came from a woman who was probably the result of a rape, because my grandma is light-skinned as hell and we don't even know who our parents are. We don't have that information. So we can only assume that she was probably the result of a rape during colonization. We just leave it at that. And we decide to not make that our story. You see that? Decision. You can decide what you can be. So why don't you just copy us? Just copy us and do what we do. You can see racism. You can acknowledge that racism exists. And you can also just choose to not let it bother you. Just don't let it bother you. You see it, walk past it, carry on.
I be seeing immigrants on this at breaking down in a way I just don't see Black Americans breaking down. And I think it's because they are finally, the veil is being lifted off of the promise of America. And I think that this is very crushing to them. They are grieving hard because they believed a lie that my people just didn't believe. Black Americans are more progressive. We progressed past the American dream lie. We're past that. I mean, we got some people who are stuck in their respectability politics era. But a lot of those people are first generations. They're not even Black Americans. Because I'm telling you right now, Black Americans are past respectability politics. We're past that because we already tried it. It's not that we like knew already. Like we're not so enlightened by by the fact that we're Black Americans. We tried everything. And that is the reason why every time an immigrant comes here, we try to let y'all know what the deal is with this country. And that's also why when you come into this country, they warn you about us. You think they warn you about us because we are dangerous and because, no, they warn you about us because we're going to tell you the truth. You might wake up a little faster if you hang out with Black Americans. That's why they don't want you hanging out with us. They don't want you near the truth tellers, obviously. So I really do feel sorry for the immigrants that the veil is being lifted from their eyes and they are crashing out. I be seeing so many videos of immigrants just like, so upset about the things that are happening in this country and mourning the loss of the American dream in a way that Black people mourn that shit. I think my mom mourned it.
Easier for us Africans that were raised in Africa to feel like they're complaining because we were raised through struggle. Like I barely even have water and you have water, you're complaining. But then it's not about the basic necessity or about how we are raised. We are raised like, I don't want to say way better. We might not have resources, but there's some way, like our own people will not look down on us or put us behind. So it's in their nurture that way. Like they just can't overlook it. And if you sit down and watch everything that the forefathers have been through for real, I changed my mind. No, they need to be angry. However, they should still move forward.
I mean, we have police brutality back home too.
True.
We have, like, if you go to Cameroon and then you see how the police officer treat us and they're Black just like us, you're not even gonna believe it. And in Cameroon we have this. Have you guys heard of the word like tribalism? So
yeah, it happens in Nigeria.
Yeah, so we do get oppressed too. And
I agree.
So when I'm saying like we need to like look past that, I'm not saying forget what happened to you guys or me. At the end of the day, we cannot just sit and just grieve on the past. We have to be able to move on, but not forget. If I could choose a place to live, it would obviously be my country. I love my country, but right now, my country is not the best choice for me. There's a little genocide going on in Cameroon right now. So many innocent lives are being taken. If I was still in my country, the opportunity that I have here, I would not have those opportunities there.
More African immigrants are beginning to speak openly about experiences that Black Americans have been describing for generations. And for some people, that realization is uncomfortable. Because many Africans arrived in the US believing that if you worked hard, stayed focused, got an education, and avoided what they considered as the wrong ground, then race would not seriously affect your opportunities. Some even distanced themselves from Black Americans. They said that experience is not our experience. We are different. We came here to work, we came here legally, and we have our own culture. But then reality started hitting. The job applications, the work treatment, the assumptions based on appearances. That moment when people see your skin color before they even hear your accent, learn your nationality, or even discover your educational background. And suddenly, some Africans are beginning to understand what Black Americans were trying to explain all along.
It's different when you get to the States. And when you get to the States, there is a Black American dream, Black immigrant dream that if you could get to the States, you could make it. Because there's this idea that the American dream is there. We haven't gotten the updates yet. The Black Americans on the ground probably have. They know as much that, oh no, that dream that you're talking about, that's literally a figment. But the Black Caribbean person or the Black African will come into that space and be around Black Americans, and they will look at them as though, why haven't you taken advantage of this? And I noticed very early on, especially after Trump took office, is that there's a dread, an existential dread that just creeps after a long time being in that space. And what ends up happening is you get so defeated and you feel so futile in your efforts to do what the black immigrant might very well think you can do. Mm-hmm. And until I got to like that, I want to say 8-year mark when I was in the States, and a wave of depression washed over me. I think it was a little bit into the Trump presidency, where I just needed to resign from white people in mass. Like I felt a craving, and that's why honestly I came back home. I could not look at white people after Trump, especially in Iowa, after Trump was in office for a little bit, because there was a level of arrogance and a deservedness and an entitlement that I don't know if I could have dealt with for far too long. So I had to get out of there. And then I thought to myself, I said, damn, I got that after 8 years. These niggas been here since they was born. They've been dealing with that shit since they was born. If I could feel that defeated after 8 years of this shit, I can only imagine what my friend from Chicago was feeling, what my friend from Atlanta was feeling. I could only imagine after at a particular point being looked at every time when I walk into a grocery store. You got a white old lady looking at you like you was a damn monster. And even if they look at you fondly, you still being fetishized. Even if they look at you like...
As a black person, finding a job in America sometimes is very difficult. I'm telling you, there is something that they call silent racism. I don't know if you guys know what silent racism is. Like, they are not blatantly racist towards you. Like, can you say share streets now discriminatory but something? No. But you see, when you are trying to find a job, right, and you are black, there is something that turns them off. I don't know why. So let's say you call them on call and then you have an accent. Automatically they change the mood, and then they will be like, okay, we are doing our investigation, something like that, we'll call you back. They never call you back. It happened to me a couple of times, right? And I spoke to some of the other black brothers no more. And I was asking, like, is this very common? And they were like, yeah, Charlie, I had here. If you don't have another black person that's working in the place, it will be a best on Saturday call her. It's very difficult. Or if you don't have maybe a white person close to you that conversation, or no have a conversation on your behalf, or sometimes you don't even get a return email, right? It's very difficult as a black person. When you have an accent, generally in America, it's difficult to find a job. They don't really take you seriously, and it's very sad, right? It's very sad unless you know someone. So yeah, that silent racism in terms of finding a job is very real here. Very, very, very real. Very real. If you are white, you are good to go. But if you are black, Indian, someone with a weird accent, usually they don't take you serious. They don't call you. It's very difficult.
Now, this conversation requires nuance. Not every African immigrant looked down on black Americans, and not every African American denied racism. And Africa is a massive continent with many different cultures and experiences. There has absolutely been tension in some communities. Some immigrants believe they could separate themselves from black Americans by emphasizing nationality: Nigerian, Ghanaian, Kenyan, Ethiopian, African, but not black American. And culturally, yes, those identities matter. But here is the difficult lesson some people are learning. Prejudice does not always stop and ask for your passport. A person making a snap judgment about you may not know whether your family has lived in America for 300 years or whether you arrived 3 years ago. They may simply see a black person, and that is where experiences become eye-opening. Because suddenly, the warnings that once sounded like excuses can begin to sound like lived reality. And this is where the conversation gets even deep. Many African immigrants come to America with a powerful belief in education and handwork. And that is admirable, of course. But some discover that qualification do not automatically protect you from bias. You can have a degree, you can have the experience, you can speak professionally, you can follow every rule, and still wonder why your resume is being ignored. still feel the pressure to change your name on an application, still feel that you have to work twice as hard just to be viewed as equally competent, still walk into certain professional spaces and immediately feel that you're being evaluated differently. That does not mean every rejection is racism. You have to be responsible enough to say that. But it is also does not mean discrimination suddenly disappeared. And this is exactly why many Black Americans became frustrated when people dismiss their experiences as laziness, victim mentality, or excuses. Because for generations, Black Americans have been saying you cannot understand this system only by looking at individual efforts. You also have to examine patterns, institutions, history, and unequal treatment. So, why are some African immigrants changing their perspective? Because lived experiences can challenge assumptions. It is easy to dismiss discrimination when you believe you'll be treated as the exemption. But after years in workplace, housing market, schools, professional environment, and everyday social institutions, some people begin noticing patterns. They realize success in America can be far more complicated than the image they were sold. And then something else happens. They begin looking at Black American history different. The civil rights movement, housing discrimination, employment discrimination, unequal access to opportunities, the long struggle to be treated with dignity and fairness, and suddenly the question becomes, what if Black Americans were not exaggerating? What if they were describing something we simply had no experience yet? This is a major shift because sometimes people do not believe a warning until they personally encounter the conditions behind it. And this is why I believe this conversation matters. The lessons should not be that Africans and Black Americans are identical. They are not. There are different histories, cultures, nationalities, and experiences, but there can still be overlapping experiences of racial bias. And maybe the biggest realization is this: distancing yourself from another Black community does not guarantee the prejudice will distinguish between you. You can be proud to be Nigerian, Ghanaian, Kenyan, Ethiopian, FBA. Those identities do not disappear. But denying another group experience just because you have not experienced it yet creates unnecessary division. I want to hear from you guys. Do you think more African immigrants are beginning to understand what Black Americans have been saying about racism in America, or do you think experiences are still fundamentally different? Give your thoughts in the comment section below, and kindly remember to keep it respectful. If you want more breakdowns like these, hit the subscribe button and join our family. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.